is the third time the charm. Jack Ciattarelli hopes 2025 is the year he finally gets to move into Drumthwacket. The Point starts right now. He beat 4 other Republicans to get the GOP nomination for governor. Now what? Jack Ciattarelli, how are you going to beat Mikey Sherrill?
Oh, we're going to take our message to all the people of New Jersey. There's all kinds of crises raging throughout our state. Phil Murphy's tenure has been a failure. She supported every one of his policies. We're going to remind people of that.
So, in other words, we're going to hear Phil Murphy a lot during this campaign.
Well, she's Phil Murphy 2.0. And she has supported his failed policies. I think that's fair game.
Why are what policies have failed?
We've got an affordability crisis in New Jersey. Our individuals and our businesses pay the highest overall taxes in the nation. I can fix that by reducing the size and cost of our state government. We have a public safety crisis across New Jersey. Nonviolent crime is through the roof, and look at the flash mobs on our Jersey Shore, particularly over the Memorial Day weekend. Public education crisis in the state. We just slipped from 2 to 12 on the national report card because he shut us down for 2 years during the pandemic and hasn't put programs in place to make up for that learning loss. Overdevelopment, our suburbs, it's across the board, Marcia.
So you basically say that she's been out of touch and out of focus by being in Washington and not knowing what Jersey problems are?
I agree with you 100%, and she has supported Phil Murphy's policies, as well as Joe Biden's open border policies. She's for sanctuary cities, and us being a sanctuary state, I'll reverse that on day one.
How can you reverse sanctuary cities? You have to get the legislature to go along with you, no?
Not on that one. By executive order, I can reverse the immigrant trust directive that tells our local police not to do certain things. My job is to keep the state safe, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
So she's going to say the T word, Trump, and she's going to say, if you talk about sanctuary cities and reversing it, that you're following the policies of the President of the United States.
She's going to say Trump more than once. In fact, in my acceptance speech the other night, what I said was, if this was a drinking game, and you took a shot every time she says Trump, you'll be drunk every day between now and Election Day.
But so she called you in her election speech a Trump lackey. How did you feel about that? Do you feel that that's correct? It's not correct? And how are you going to respond to it? Because she's going to use that day in and day out as well.
Let me tell you why I feel really good about that. When the other side is calling you names, it means they're worried, and we're winning.
But how do you deal with that? I mean, people believe that you, one of the reasons you won, not all of the reasons, because you did really well the last time you ran, but was Trump's endorsement was a help. So how are you going to deal with that as you go towards November? Most people think that, like, when you win a primary, you have to go to the right, but then you come to the middle in the general election. What is Jack Ciattarelli going to do?
First of all, in the primary, I didn't tack right, I didn't tack left, I didn't tack center, I tacked New Jersey. But here are the facts. Donald Trump got 500,000 more votes than Phil Murphy did in the last gubernatorial presidential election combined. He's polling 7 points ahead of Governor Murphy in this supposedly deep blue state of New Jersey, and he's taken policy positions that are overwhelmingly received well by New Jerseyans. What are they? Stop the wind farms off the Jersey Shore. He's beaten up on the New York Democrats over congestion pricing. He's willing to quadruple the SALT deduction on our federal tax returns. Can you imagine that? We're going to go from 10 to 40,000. That's important in a state that pays the highest property taxes in the nation.
Well, let's take which is one at a time. You talk about wind farms, right? The high cost of electricity in New Jersey is driving people crazy. How are you going to get rid of the wind farms and find a way to get more power so you can reduce the cost of power to people?
So this is one of the other policy failures of the Murphy administration that she has supported. Wind was never going to supply electricity we need. I'll lift the moratorium on natural gas-fired electricity generation plants. I'm going to expand our nuclear footprint in South Jersey. I'll expand our solar footprint, and we'll get the price of electricity down. In 2018, when Murphy took office, New Jersey was an electricity exporter. Today we're an importer. And going through the exchanges, that's what's causing electricity to rise so significantly.
Why did that change in 8 years? I mean, what changed the fact that you couldn't export electricity anymore? More people, or? He
stopped with a diversified mix of electricity production. No natural gas, no nuclear, wasn't cooperative on solar. He bet it all on wind, which has crashed and burned. And my opponent supported him on that.
But why did wind crash and burn? It was regarded as so much a popular thing at the time.
A couple things. One, it's a very interest rate sensitive industry. And when interest rates went from 2 to 7 and they wanted more government subsidies, I don't like when an industry is dependent on government subsidies in order to survive.
But one of the things that, that's going on in the country right now is what's going on in Los Angeles and the fact that he has federalized the National Guard. What would you do if he said, I'm going to bring the National Guard into New Jersey if you were governor?
Hey, we could use all the help we can get to stop anything from Los Angeles happening here in New Jersey. But guess what? On a much smaller scale, it did happen over the Memorial Day weekend. In one particular town, 101 arrests, stabbings, chaos, violence, flash mobs. We now have curfews on our Jersey shore. If you're a business owner, you've only got 3 months out of the year to make your money, and now we're shutting you down 2 hours early every single night. How would you like that?
So you would welcome the National Guard? I mean, there's been instances that have gone on in Newark at Delaney Hall. Would you bring the National Guard in to deal with that? There was a riot just this week.
I would be in constant contact with our local police, our county sheriffs, and the state police. Let's bring all of our law enforcement agencies together. Do you need help in order to stop, for example, these flash mobs? And there's going to be protests across the state this weekend, and I've called for them to be peaceful. But the governor needs to be ready.
So as governor, would you have the National Guard on standby?
You bet I would.
Would you call on other police jurisdictions under mutual aid to come into wherever you think there's going to be protests?
100%. In order to prevent what's happening in L.A. from happening in New Jersey, you bet, particularly along our Jersey shore during the summer months.
But these protesters seem to feel that they're empowered to do what they're doing. How would you try to negotiate with them? Would you try to stop them? I mean, how do you deal with it?
You have a right to feel however you want. You actually have a right to peacefully protest. What we're not going to have is lawlessness.
But so there's a problem in New Jersey because New Jersey, of every person in New Jersey, 1 out of every 4 New Jerseyans are immigrants. So how do you make them feel welcome and a part of the economy and a part of life in New Jersey when you want to, end sanctuary cities and you want to crack down on protests that have to do with immigration? Legal
immigrants are more than welcome. Donald Trump ran on this campaign promise. I'm going to make our country safe again. He won all 7 swing states. He won the popular vote, the Electoral College, the House and the Senate. And illegal crossings at the border are down 99%. I have a job to keep New Jersey safe. And encouraging illegal immigration by having sanctuary cities and a sanctuary state is something that New Jerseyans overwhelmingly do not want.
But see, one of the things that Trump has been saying over the last several days is there might have been an overreaction to deporting immigrants because it's affecting the farm industry and it's affecting the hospitality industry. And New Jersey is known as the Garden State. So there's a lot of farms there that depend on migrants to do the labor. So do you think that there needs to be a retrenchment, a move back, so people who are on these farms and doing the work don't feel they have to flee?
So let's think about this. In his first term, he offered to extend DACA, deferred action, to illegals. And also, when recently asked in a TV interview, what do you do about people that have been here for 10 or 20 years, have been part of the workforce and haven't committed any crimes? And what he said was, it's difficult. It is difficult. But let's be clear. Those that came here with a criminal background from their country of origin need to go back. And those that came here illegally and committed a crime once here need to go back. Unless they're not going to be incarcerated upon return, we should incarcerate them.
But you see, you also have a situation where the ICE agents have been turning up at courthouses where people are responding to their regular court hearings and they're being arrested and they're complying with the law. How do you feel about that?
If they're responding to a court hearing, aren't they doing that because they committed a crime?
No, they're responding to a court hearing because they're going through the process of getting their green cards and being legal.
Well, certainly applying for a green card is a process we have here. Work visas, people from other states, student visas, we're all for that.
So you would not say to President Trump, don't make these arrests at courthouses?
No, what I will say is I'm going to work in partnership with the president to keep our communities safe. And my attorney general will not be suing the White House over any executive orders that are designed to keep our country and our state safe. I really believe that every one of our governors, no matter what their party affiliation, should be working in partnership with the president to make our country safe again.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But up next, we'll be talking housing, rent hikes, and homelessness with Christine Quinn. Christine Quinn is the president and CEO of WIN, the largest provider of family shelter in the city. But today we are going to talk about the possibility of a rent hike, or for your purposes, you'd like to see a rent freeze.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, so there are 2 issues. One, there's the Rent Guidelines Board and whether they're going to raise rents on all of the rent-protected apartments. And that will make it much harder for low-income and formerly homeless people to rent apartments. But even worse, as it relates to homeless folks, Right now, we have this great system of housing vouchers where if you want to leave shelter, the city will give you a voucher. You pay 30% of your income into it. The voucher pays this
Now
remaining.
the mayor wants to raise that.
He does. So for folks who have been in the program for a while, had a voucher, he wants to raise that to 40%.
What effect will that have?
Well, that we will see. It will raise rents on average by about $444 a month on a formally. No, and we know there's independent government accounting office that shows anytime you raise rents in these situations of $100 or more, it has a 9 to 13% increase in homelessness. This will send people who've been living stably back into shelter, which is obviously traumatic for a family.
So why does the mayor want to do this?
Well, you know, I think it's part of a larger, even more troubling pattern of trying to destabilize and get rid of the entire voucher program. Doing this...
But why is that be in their best interests? I mean, the whole point is they want to get the homeless people into housing.
I can't answer that question because it makes no sense. The commissioner of the Department of Homeless Services said this change will save $11 million, which on its face is nothing, but we estimate very conservatively it will cost the city at least $13 million if only 1%, and it'll be more, but if even 1% of people return back to shelter. And the thing is, at the point in the program they want to change this, you get means tested every year. So if you're making over the amount that qualifies for a voucher, you're taken off the voucher. So this idea that there might be fraud or whatever, it is built into the program to root that out.
But it seems counterproductive.
Completely.
It seems that, you know, if the city is really dedicated towards helping homeless people become, you know, get housing and get jobs and live their lives, it seems like the wrong strategy. It's
the wrong strategy any day of the week. But right now, when the federal government is looking to get rid of their vouchers, like Section 8, a program that's worked so well, this is a time when the city should be doubling down and investing in programs like vouchers even more. With homeless families, less than 1% of the folks who exit with a voucher return to shelter. Of the families that exit without a voucher, 12% return to shelter. And a night living in an apartment with a voucher costs taxpayers $72. A night in a shelter is over $200.
So that doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. I can't explain it. Unfortunately, there have become a lot of things in the Adams administration we can't all explain or understand, and this is unfortunately one of them. We are lucky. I want to thank Governor Hochul. She and the state legislature, Carl Hastie, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, they recently created a state housing voucher of $50 million, but that won't be able to make up the impact of this cut.
So if you were to increase the cost of rent for an average person who's come out of homelessness by $400, what does that do to their ability to support their family? I mean, how much money would they be left with?
I mean, they're going to be left with a very small amount of money, particularly given another thing that's happened, which is that there's been a cutback in child care vouchers. So folks who used to be guaranteed free or low-cost child care are now having to pay out of their own pocket, which, as every New Yorker knows, is astronomical.
I thought that the governor just passed a bill that would increase child health care.
But it's not going to be, she did, but it's not going to be as broad-based as it used to be, and by no fault of hers. And we're going to see probably you'd be left at the end of the month with somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000.
So when you talk about the Rent Guidelines Board and the increases that they've been calling for, there's always the other side, which is landlords who argue that they can, especially small property owners, who argue that they can't afford to keep it up. So what happens to them? I mean, did you have to have a two-tier system where big landlords have to deal with a rent freeze and small landlords maybe not so much?
I mean, I think that two-tiered system is something that should be looked at, right? Because it's very, very different when you have a multinational corporation that owns rental apartments, which is a given in a lot of buildings in this city, and when you have more of a mom and pop. But these vouchers actually are really beneficial to small property owners. A lot of the buildings that these folks go into are small to medium buildings out in the boroughs, and we've seen those property owners and the Real Estate Board of New York stand with us as we've tried to save the vouchers, prevent the rent hike, and also make the program more efficient.
But how does preventing a rent hike help the small property owners who say, I've interviewed numbers of them who say that they're living hand to mouth now?
Well, it won't cause another loss in their ledger, right? Because if somebody can't pay anymore because they've lost their voucher, then the landlord is going to probably move to eviction, which costs them money, and the apartment will be vacant for however long it's going to be vacant. When these vouchers work well, they're a steady stream of income for a small business owner. So they also have, not the primary issue, but they also have an economic development impact.
So are you worried about an increase in evictions?
Oh, I'm very worried about an increase in evictions. I think we will see, you know, a significant portion of people who are at the point we're talking about in the process end up back in shelter. And we're talking about children here, families with children. The average length of stay in a shelter is a little less than a year. The average age of children at our shelter is 5 years old. That's basically a quarter of their life spent living in a shelter. And although I think we run outstanding programs at WIN, I wouldn't want my 5-year-old niece or nephew living for a year in one of our buildings. It's not appropriate.
But what does that do to their education?
Well, on average, homeless kids go to 2 to 3 schools a year.
A year?
A year. Because you might be at shelter, you know, you move from your original place, you're in shelter, you're in one school, and then maybe you move to permanent housing and you're in another. So kids fall behind. We also see that kids get bullied terribly in school because the other kids know who's the shelter kids. We try to add a lot of educational programs in our shelters, but we raise private money for that, and not everybody can do that. And 1 in 8 children in public school is experiencing some type of homelessness.
So in addition to the rent freeze that you're talking about, there's also a move afoot by the Adams administration to eliminate something called the unit hold incentive. Tell me about that and how that could adversely impact the amount of apartments that would be available for homeless people.
So during COVID, the administration started a procedure where once, say, you're looking for an apartment, you find an apartment, it's locked. The landlord can't give it away. If they have to pay part of a month's rent to hold it, they do. Why do we need that? Because the paperwork process, the red tape in getting a voucher picked is so enormous, it can go on for over a month. But that way we don't lose the apartment and have to start all over. I do want to give the commissioner credit. She is trying to streamline the process. And when we get there, maybe we won't need the rent hold, but we need them now because otherwise it's just like a hamster wheel. You find an apartment, you lose an apartment because the city can't get the first month's check to the landlord quickly enough.
But aren't the landlords willing to say, okay, I know that the money's coming and give you the apartment?
You know, sometimes you feel like a bird in the hand, right, if you're a landlord and you don't want to take that risk. And because the city hasn't been the best administrative partner, they're often not willing to take that risk.
So we have about 15 seconds left. What effect do you think this is going to have on the mayor's race, the rent freeze?
Well, we asked all the mayoral candidates to pledge that if they got elected, they would take the rent back to 30%, and all of the major Democratic candidates, except for Michael Blake and Andrew Cuomo, took the pledge.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But there's more right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. Thank you for joining me. It's Father's Day, a day when I think of my dad, a tough-as-nails former Air Force pilot, who taught me to see my dreams with open eyes and make them happen. New Yorkers have fond memories of their fathers, and they're weighing in on your point. Describe your father in 3 words.
Analytical, curious, and honorable.
Brave, strong, and loving.
Kind, nice, and amazing, I guess.
Thoughtful, kind, and considerate.
Very hard worker.
Happy, nice, busy.
Oh, my dad. I would describe him as goofy, hardworking, and strong.
Loving, caring,
and understanding.
He's inspiring, hardworking, and just so thoughtful.
Oh, my father is so loving. He's so patient. Oh, he's pretty funny too. Yeah, I love my dad so much.
So is there anything he told you always to do?
Always be the best I can be.
Think for myself.
Like just educate yourself and be patient.
He told me to never be lazy and work hard.
Be number one. Be the best at everything.
Just try my best.
Make my bed.
Did you listen?
Sometimes.
So was there something your father always told you to do?
Be honest.
Did you listen?
No.
What's Dad always told us to do?
Go traveling.
Oh yeah, go traveling while we're young. Always.
And did you listen?
Yeah, I'm here now in New York.
One that always stood out is to follow my dreams, to really chase after the things that I want in life and work hard for them.
Is there something he always told you to do?
Not to gamble.
Did you listen?
Yes. Absolutely.
Why gamble?
He worked in casinos his entire life doing software, so he saw exactly what would happen if you start working on the slot machines. They do not release you.
Give your dad a shout out.
I will.
Now on camera.
Oh, hi Dad, I love you.
Hey Dad, this is CBS News. I'm good. I'm going to school. Shout out to you.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Love you.
I love you and I miss you.
Hi Dad, I love you. I hope your hip is feeling better. He just had surgery, so.
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Hope you have the best day. Thanks for telling us to go traveling.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Love you.
Hey, Dad, I love you. Make sure you water that lemon tree today, okay?
You could talk to your dad and give him a shout out. What would you say?
Just, I love you, Dad. Just where you are, I love you.
Well, my dad is long gone, but just thank you.